doesn't like to hear stories? We love hearing stories. Who likes to hear fishing stories? I do. I love to watch fishing YouTube videos. I like reading fishing books. I like hearing fishing stories. So tonight we have with us a speaker named Mike Sandifer. He has written several books, and tonight he is going to share some of his information. He's going to share some of his stories, and he's also runs a Northwest School of Fly Fishing. So he also teaches fly fishing. So what better person to tell us some fishing stories than an old hobo?
It's funny, I just, this March, I broke down and started a YouTube channel.
Oh.
I thought I could beat YouTube, but no. And to kick off the YouTube channel, I thought I would wrap it around this book I just written a year or so ago called On the Water, Memories of an Old Fish Hobo. This one here. And it's just eight decades of wandering around the woods fly fishing. So I thought I'd do a video on that. So I got a videographer to help me do it, and it was going to be, if you haven't watched it, you should, and it was going to be a lot of voiceover type stuff, and I wanted to do it an hour long, and I had a good year to do it, and 3 videographers later, we ended up with about 15 minutes. So that was our lead. Video. So I don't know anything about YouTube. So I just jumped in and did that. I thought we'd start with that. And getting back to the Old Fish Hobo. So now when I do a YouTube video, I have to say, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mike, Northwest School of Fly Fishing, the Old Fish Hobo. It's kind of my thing now. People are emailing me, calling me the old hobo, so and there's a reason why it's that way. So I brought a couple books. You can buy them at the shop, you can buy them online on my website. Also today came in the mail, my cards that have the real address and phone number on them, because we just moved to our hopefully last shop. So if you want to pass those around, grab one. And then I've been writing a newsletter in the Valley for dating back to like 2013, 10 years. And they've kind of evolved over the years. And if you like my writing, I always write 3 fly fishing blogs. And over the years, it's kind of evolved, these blogs, from a very teaching point of view to just life in general and whatever strikes me. And then there's a real-time fish report on it. There's a question and answer thing on it, and kind of some events that we're doing. So if you want that, that's free. It doesn't cost you anything. A pen, you can sign up if you want. I do it once a month, or when I feel like it. So the YouTube site is Northwest School of Fly Fishing. So go to YouTube, type in Northwest School of Fly Fishing, and then you'll see a list of videos. I think I have 40 on. You see a list of videos there. And if you click onto one, just go to my channel. If you're familiar with YouTube, it's right under the description. You click on it, and you can see all 40 videos there if you like. But to help me, support me, I would appreciate if you subscribe, and the reason is there's no money to be made in YouTube. The best I could hope for is probably $20 a month, which doesn't even cover the gas to make the video. But there's a change in how I started doing things in fly fishing. We started out with a little teeny 400 square foot building back in 2012. In 2010, we started operating in my house. So I'd run classes and I would do all kinds of stuff in my house. And then one day, Martha came to me and said, "It's time that you find a new place." So we found this 400 square foot building, and it was so successful that we moved into a 2,000 square foot building. Most people that know me remember this old shop. We decided to create a fly shop there, and it's just really weird is I opened the shop on 5 Mile Road, Northwest School of Fly Fishing. And there was a couch in the back, and all the way to the front was, the very front was a fly fishing pram, and in the middle was a box of flies. And I remember people coming in from the fly fishing business. They would come in, they'd look around, and they'd look at me and say, "We see you guys come and go. You're never gonna make a dime." This is these guys. That's the old boy network in town. We ended up building 5,000 square feet there, and we had classrooms and seminars and classes. I was working 7 days a week teaching fly fishing. And then COVID hit. Well, I was deemed not a, how shall I say this, not a essential business, where all fly shops were considered essential business because we were a school of fly fishing. So nobody came in because of COVID, which was fine with me because we were at the end of our lease, and I was kind of looking to slow down. We moved over to the Fairview. We were on Fairview for 3 years, and things changed for me there on Fairview. And I got to the point where this is kind of nice. You know, I only had 1,000 square feet and a little fly shop and a little room. And I just felt like it was time to not teach classes anymore. I was tired of it. And the big seminars and those things. I do occasionally. I spoke over at Idaho Fish and Game. I think we had 180 people there, and that was quite controversial. Most of the time when I speak, it's very controversial things I talk about. And I don't mean that in the way you're thinking of it, because anybody that knows me knows I speak on the science and logic of fly fishing, why we do what we do. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. And I had actually people walk out. So, a little long after 3 years there and 2 years of COVID, I sat back one day and I decided there's things that I'm doing I don't like to do anymore. I don't enjoy doing them. So I decided that I was going to stop doing all the things I don't like to do in the fly fishing business and just do the things I really like to do. And I really nailed it down to 3 things. So what I'm doing today is I'm spending most of my time helping people that really need fly fishing help. I mean, when I started teaching fly fishing in the valley 30 some odd years ago, I was the only guy teaching it. At a corner market, there was no internet. Well, today, everybody's teaching it. It's all over town. And you can learn how to fly fish from a lot of different people, the shops, stores. With the internet now, we have guys doing it, and it's all good stuff. You know, I pretty much teach the same stuff, just in a different way. But after you learn how to fly fish, everybody ignores you. So I had an epiphany to me one morning. I said, what I really liked that I do, that I don't do anymore, is I like to coach. I want to go back to being a fly fishing coach, not a guide. I'm done with that. I want to be a fly fishing coach. What a fly fishing coach is really cool, is that I worked with people that already fly fish. So someone will come to me who's already fly fishing, and they come to me to get better. And that's what I do. The second thing I do is I write. I found out that I love to write. And I'm working on my 4th book right now on fly fishing. And then the third thing I really like to do, which I didn't know, is I like making videos. Don't get me wrong, I've made 80 videos, but they were in my private archive where nobody could see them. And then over COVID, I lost my 2 older brothers. One died in my arms. I lost my sister-in-law. I lost my father-in-law in that span. So I'm the only living member outside of, of our generation in the family. And I got looking at those 80 videos, and I got to thinking, well, if I go, no one will ever see that stuff. And the archives of what I've written, no one will ever read that. So I decided we're just gonna have to make those public, hence the YouTube stuff. So I'm starting to put that stuff on YouTube, and the reaction has been incredible. So I would encourage you to go to those videos. They're very instructional. It's not a guy holding a beer talking fly fishing. Really instructional on these videos. And you'll get some really sound advice from someone you now know. Not from someone you don't know. And then the archived, all the stuff I've written, we're creating a new domain now just for that. So we want to put all that on. So that'll be open, and you'll get some stuff out of that. So that's me, that's my background. And if you've got my card, you have my email address on there, you have my website, and you can get the books there. This one book I wrote, really cool, called Critical Concepts in Fly Fishing, Mastering the Art of Fly Fishing. This is 50 years of me studying fly fishing and 8 decades of fly fishing. And there's not a thing in here that I created. There's not a single concept that I developed. There's no opinions on here. Everything in here is what I teach, and everything in here is on the internet. And it's in about 5,000 books. All I did was pick it out and put it in one book. And it's interesting, I'll lead off with my first story. So I wrote this book, and it's a cool book. I wanted to do this. I wanted to put lots of pictures in it and lots of charts and things. And if I'm known for anything, I've been teaching fly fishing in front of groups for so long that I'm really good at it. I can teach it elementarily so that you really understand the science. And that's really where I come from, as a science background. So here about 3 years ago, I suppose, I was asked to speak at the expo, which is not unusual. I almost always do it. They asked me to come talk about this, or they asked me to come talk about that. Well, they asked me to come speak, and they wanted me to speak about my new book. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So here it is. So I showed up the day of my seminar or presentation, and there was about 50 people in the room. And I said, introduce myself. You're all here because of this. And I said, but we're going to do a quick quiz. So let's do a quiz. And I want everybody to raise your hand if you know the answer. And are we ready to go? Yeah. How many in here fly fish? Raise your hand. And they all raise their hand. How many in here are under the age of 45? Raise your hand. They all raise their hand. How many know what this is? Raise your hand. And on I went. How many know what YouTube is? Raise your hand. So on and so forth. And I said, congratulations, you've all passed the first part of the quiz. The second part is now, okay? So raise your hand if you know the answer. I opened up to the table of contents, and I said, how many know what this is? Raise your hand. Well, how many people know what this is? Raise your hand. And it went on and on. Not a single hand rose. So I said, the name of this book is called Critical Concepts in Fly Fishing, Mastering the Art of Fly Fishing, and you don't know a single concept or principle in fly fishing. This is the foundation in fly fishing. What I mean by foundation, you can't build a house without a foundation. And none of the stuff I made up. And then I went ahead and started explaining about this book. How many books did I sell? None. Not a book. So there's a moral to every story.
I'd rather watch YouTube, huh?
That's why I say I'm a traitor to my own thing. It's funny, this happened last week. I had to take the trash out. My new shop, I gotta go up the stairs. I'm buried. So I walk up the stairs and I'm carrying this bag of trash across the parking lot to the dumpsters. As I'm walking to the dumpsters, I see this guy standing by this black car staring at me. And so I put the trash in the dumpster and I turn back around this way and he's still staring at me. So at this point I went right to him, because maybe somebody I know. So I walked up, and when he got close, he goes, "You're that fishing guy, aren't you? You're that hobo, right?" This is YouTube. And I said, "Yeah, how are you?" And I introduced myself. He goes, "I came all the way to California to talk to you." Yeah. So we sat down and shot very coffee. We talked about these four principles of life. But back in 2013, I got a phone call one day. I don't do a lot of speaking anymore. For me to come down here is an honor and a privilege. I've spoken quite often with this club over the years, and as well as the other clubs and other clubs in and around. But what I don't like to do anymore, I think I mentioned it, is Boy Scouts, schools. You know, I like talking to fly fishers, people that understand what I'm talking about. So I slowed down a little bit, but back then I got a phone call from this assisted living place, and they wanted me to come down and speak. I'm sorry, Christine, has probably heard all these stories. They wanted me to come down and speak. I said, "Sure, what do you want me to talk about?" "Well, you can talk about your school and what you're doing." I said, "I'd love to." Yeah. Back then, man, if you could, I'd talk to a dog if you'd let me. And so I got all my stuff and I went to this assisted living, and I'll say that at the end. And I walked into the office. "Oh, glad to see you, blah, blah, blah. There's an auditorium in the back." And so I walked back there, and I got all set. There's no one there. It's empty. So I got all my stuff. And they wheel in two gentlemen and two women, and one other person came in. And I'm looking at back then I wore a watch, and I'm looking, it's about time to start, and I walked over to get started. I guess I'm just gonna talk to these five people. Well, two of them were asleep already. So now I got three awake, two asleep. And how many have seen the movie River Runs Through It? Pretty much everybody. Okay. So I start, "Hi, I'm Mike Sandifer from Northwest School of Fly Fishing, and thank you for having me." I'm talking to three people, right? And I'm talking about our school, where we're located, and I get about 3 or 4 minutes into this spiel, and two more are asleep. So there was one lady who was awake, so I walked over like this, and I said, "Do you want to hear a fishing story?" She goes, "Yeah." So I said, "I'm going to tell you a story. I was on Montana, on the Blackfoot River. I'm making this story real short. I was in Montana on the Blackfoot River. I was with my brother and my dad. We were walking along the river, and I saw this nice stretch of water there. And I wanted to go down there, and I wanted to cast them across the river. And I tied on a bunion bug. And I waded out the river, and I made a long cast. And sure enough, this monster trout grabs it, right? And it was he just took off down the river, and I jumped in the river. I grabbed my hat and my cigarettes, and I held my rod, and I went down the river after him. And it took me down the river, and I was explaining how I was under a rock and was trapped. And I got out, and I looked on the shore, and there's my dad and my brother, and I had this fish, and I held it up to them, and I said, "In 3 more years, I'll be able to think like a fish." I told this story, which is from A River Runs Through It, right? And to this day, I go down there, and when I was done telling that story, 10 more people showed up. And so I decided that I'm just going to tell stories. Now, everybody's now awake, so I spent the next hour and a half telling fish stories. The place was packed, the employees came, and all they wanted to hear was fish stories. If there's a moral to this, I live a block away from that home now. and they're going to save a seat for me there. So when I started fishing here in Idaho, I had all dark hair, all black hair, and look at it now. But a lot of these things I want to talk to you about, I write about. You'll find them in my books. Certainly, you'll find them on my blogs I write. Nowadays, I go fly fishing once or twice a week, like normal, and I'm in search of something else besides fish. I mean, I think of fly fishing as more as a means to an end. And I'm one of these guys that are really pretty philosophical about it. And I'm in search now when I go out. I want to be inspired. So I go to Martha and I say, honey, I'm heading over to the North Fork of the Payette River, which is one of my favorite haunts. I was just there Sunday. And that's now in my next blog. And she looks at me, she says, are you going to find your inspiration? I go, I think so. Because I can't find any inspiration sitting in my shop. And Christine, you've been in the new shop, there's nothing in there but fish. There's fish everywhere. Paintings, and books, and things like that. But I can't be inspired in there. And I can't be inspired just by talking fly fishing. I have to be out doing it. And inspiration comes to me in basically three forms. I see something that sparks an interest in me. And in this coming newsletter, which if you sign up, I think you'll get, because we're sending it out tomorrow, I'll have Martha add your to the list. I think this inspiration is in there. Well, at least one of them. And I have to be inspired when I'm out there for the three things that I really like to do, which is writing, teaching, and working with anglers. I find inspiration. So I'm in search of something that grabs my attention. In the case of the blog coming up with the next video, it's, the next newsletter, it's called The Old Man in the River. I met an old fly fisherman there and actually snapped his picture. And he was just beaming fly fishing. I mean, you could just see it dripping off him, the years of experience. And I was able to meet this man. That man inspired me. Or it inspires a memory. And that's what this is. It inspires something that I had buried 8 decades ago. And I can resurrect that memory and put it on paper. And the third thing is it inspires me to teach in video form. And the fourth thing is every once in a while I get to fish. I'm not turning rocks with nets and stuff. But it wasn't always like that. On this last newsletter, I wrote a blog called Hardcore. And hardcore, as I was watching the video, and there's these young guys, probably in their late 20s, and they've got their selfie sticks, and they're hardcoring. They bushwhacked up this creek 3 miles, and to catch these fish up there. And heck, that's not hardcore, And this is the gist of the video. Hardcore for me was. Anyway, this was inspired by going fishing, this video. Hardcore for me was, we didn't have waders. We had blue jeans, Levi's, and tennis shoes. And that's how we waded the rivers. In the summer, we waded them in short and cutoffs, tennis shoes. In winter, we wore jeans. When our feet got cold, we got out and warmed them up. Wading across, jumping in the river and swimming across the river in the nation's most deadliest river, swimming across the river, that was just child's play. We did that. That's just how we did it. We didn't have YouTube, and no one ever heard those stories. And hardcore was walking up, bushwhacking that creek, and instead of eating dehydrated space food for dinner, we ate the trout we caught on a stick over the fire. Instead of drinking water out of the Yeti bottle, we drank it with our hands. Instead of setting up a nylon tent and a nice down sleeping bag, we slept with an old wool army jacket on the fire. To me, that was hardcore, but I didn't know what hardcore was. And it made me kind of laugh at those guys. But the reality of it is, that is hardcore what these guys are doing, because I quit being hardcore a long time ago. And I was just like those guys. There's absolutely no difference between me at that age and those young men at that age. So it made me appreciate a little bit about how these young hardcore men and women are doing their fly fishing today. And it also made me think, I wasn't so hardcore after all. But it leads me to this. Today, I'm not like that. I'm like I just said before. But there was one thing that happened to me that clicked me over to the person, to the angler I am today. One thing. And I was with my son, who was, God, for 10 years, he was stuck to me. Everywhere I would fly fishing, he went. Up at about age 24, and then he found a girlfriend. That was it. Now it's grandchildren. But I remember busting down into this canyon with my son. He was probably 17, 18 at the time. We busted down this canyon, and all I wanted to do was fish. And man, I just get in these zones where it just go. And I kind of lost track of my son. I knew he was behind, upriver from me. So I just stopped, and I'll just fish here until Brian catches up. And then I remember to this day hearing a whoop and a yell and a scream, and my son was like an otter. He was naked. He was feet and head up in the river, had a can of beer on his chest, and as he floated by, he looked at me, and he started talking trash to me. And he just floated on down the river like that. So I got naked, I jumped in the water. And my son him and I had a talk that day. And from that day on, really, I kind of changed and started really enjoying the journey and not the end. And I think that's what my son taught me. And if you know anything about me as a storyteller, there's always a moral to every story. How many here have been schooled? You know what that means in fly fishing? Schooled? Can't catch any fish?
Oh, yeah. It's my life.
Well, being schooled is when the fish teach you a lesson. And it's humbling, and it happens to us all. And I wrote about, in my newest book, I've written this story. And it happens when you think you know an awful lot about fly fishing. Fly fishing has a tendency to jump up and slap you a few times, humble you. And an old guy like me, I've been humbled so many times now that I don't even challenge it. But we all get schooled, and what school means is the fish teach you a lesson. The fish teach you a lesson. Now, I'm an aquatic entomologist, I'm a fly fishing scientist, and I have a reputation of being a fly fishing guru, and I hate that term because I didn't ask for any of that, but that's kind of the reputation I have, and it boils into my family. So I was on Silver Creek. No body of water has schooled me more than Silver Creek. I was with Silver Creek, it's probably about 15 years ago, and I was with my son. I was with my older brother, and I was with my best friend I've known since I was a boy. And I spent thousands and thousands of hours fishing with my buddy. And we're on Silver Creek together, and we're spaced out, and I'm the guy walking in the front. There's probably 50, 60 feet behind us. We're not catching that many fish. And I turn the corner and walk back to the creek, and the creek is boiling with trout. Just boiling. I'm talking about a fish rising about every 1.5 feet for about a 30-yard section. Well, that's 30 yards. That's a long ways. And I'm there, and not a fly fishing person around. So I spend probably 15, 20 minutes just figuring out trying to figure out what these fish are eating. And it got to me. Okay, I know what these fish are eating. And there's a neat little back that little log that was cut out for a bench. And I was waiting for everybody to catch up. And they all showed up, and they were all standing, and we're all looking at these fish, right? And we're all giving our opinion. And they said, "What do you think, Mike?" Well, this is what I think. I think they're eating little tiny blue-winged olives, which coincidentally is what fish are eating right now. So, well, let's draw straws, see who goes first. And they all looked at me. "No, you go first." So I was the guinea pig. So I have a pretty good idea what these fish are eating, and I got tons and tons of flies. So I put on what they think they want, and I walk out in the middle of Silver Creek, and I start fishing these fish. And nothing. Get back in my box. Try this one. And I must have put on 15, 16 change flies, 15 to 16 times. And after about 10 minutes, the trash talk started. The trash talk started. And it started with, of course, my son trashing his dad. And then, of course, any opportunity my brother could do to trash me, he would just jump right in. And then Bill, who's a humorist, just started trashing me. And at that point, I started trashing myself. I couldn't catch these fish to save my life. So finally, I said, I give up. I give up. And I left the creek, and I said, "Whose turn is it next?" "I ain't going in there." Not me, not me. And again, the moral of the story is everything in fly fishing is logical. There's not one thing in fly fishing that's not logical. Therefore, every problem in fly fishing has a logical solution. It's just sometimes we can't figure out what it is. And because we're schooled and we get blank, that is no reason to say that it has anything to do with you. It happens almost weekly to me. This gentleman comes in. I've been to the Mlad River just recently with my wife, and I spent quite a bit of time on the river, and he didn't know that. He came in the shop. He had gone down to the Mlad River, can't catch any fish, and he whined about it, blah, 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 blah. And he told me this 10-minute ordeal about how he couldn't catch fish on the Mlad River. And I said, "That's interesting, because I was on the Mlad River for an hour, and I couldn't catch anything either. I didn't even get a bite." Oh, that's great. Now I feel better. I feel real good about that. He feels really good about my failure. But yeah, we do get schooled, and you can't. Sometimes it's so obvious why you're not catching fish. So, for example, if I'm fishing with you, we're fishing together, and I'm catching all the fish, and you're not, there's obviously a reason why you can't catch fish. And that's understandable. But when you're with a partner or two and none of you are catching fish, you have to take a deep breath there and say it happens, and it doesn't in fly fishing. Then on the other hand, it's where do I go to fly fish? He's a real dear friend of mine. I don't know, you may have heard of him. His name is Dr. David Peterman. Anybody heard of him? Okay. Well, he's the founder of Primary Health. And he's also the retired CEO of Primary Health. And he has two homes. He has a home in Boise, and he has a home in Garden Valley. And I got a phone call one day from David Peterman, and he said, someone told me that you could help me. I've lived on the South Fork of the Payette River for 25 years, and I can't catch a fish there. And I need to see you. So he came in, and I spent probably 6-7 months with David, and now I'm getting these massive emails from him with just a prolifera of all these big fish he's catching on the South Fork of Payette. Moved them over to the North Fork Payette, can't get them off North Fork Payette. But here's a man who couldn't catch a fish for 25 years. And everything he was doing was illogical. So he lived in this one place for 25, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Drive home Sunday night, go to work Monday morning. And then he up there and he couldn't catch a fish. I got a phone call from, an email from David. And he says to me, this was this spring, that the river's blown out. If you know anything about the South Fork of the Payette River, if you look at it wrong, it's going to turn dirty. It can turn dirty like that. That's a long run. It's 54 miles of river, and all you have to do is have one creek get full of mud. The whole river's like that. He emailed me saying, I can't fish this river, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's unfishable. I gotta know another place to fish. Well, by coincidence, this is in the spring, everything's like that. By coincidence, I was up there that weekend, and I was filming, doing some drone shots up there, and he lives about 20 minutes from Lowman. And as I drove up there, as you drive Highway 17, Banks to Lowman Highway, right? Well, that's a short highway. It starts in Banks and it ends in Lowman. And you have no choice once you get Lowman. You either go right on Highway 21 to Boise, or you turn left on Highway 21 and go to Canada. So as you turn left there, I don't know, it's maybe 30 feet, and you drive over Clear Creek. There's a bridge, there's Clear Creek. Well, Clear Creek is called Clear Creek because it's clear. And I had a videographer with me I shouldn't say this, the drone operator was with me, and as I drove over the creek, I said to him, if we got time, we need to go up Clear Creek and fish. Of course, we ran out of time and wasn't able to do it. So I told David, I said, here's what you do, blah, 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 blah. Clear Creek, been there a million times. I'm surprised you don't even know where this is. How long have you lived there? I'm really not surprised. So he says, okay, I'm gonna go, and I'll let you know. So he goes up, and this is what I told him. I go, Clear Creek is high, but it's clear. And I told him there's a ton of fish in there. And you're gonna go there, David, I'm writing this, and you're gonna go there, and you're not gonna see another fly fisher there. And so he went, and he caught a lot of fish, and like David does, he takes pictures of all the fish he catches. He comes back, that was great, blah, blah, blah. David went like 5 straight weekends there. He couldn't fish anywhere else. So I decided to go back to Clear Creek, and I did. And it's kind of cool when you can stand on a road and cast a fish and not just tear your fly up. And I have fished that river since I discovered Lowman, and I've yet to see a single fly fisherman on that river, on that little creek. It's just full of trout. And there's gems like that all over. And I can tell a million people. I can tell everybody. And yet no one will go there. I wrote a blog. I wrote an article on the South Fork Payette River 12 years ago. And God, I've done presentations on the north, on the Payette River drainage. I still go there and not see anybody. It's 54 miles of river. Sure, there's other fly people there fishing, but I don't see them. There's a lot of gems like that. And I call it, I have a chapter in the book called Blue Lines. Back in the day, we didn't have computers, and we didn't have the internet. The only way you could find out where to fly fish was go to a fly shop. And you think they're gonna tell you where to fish? No, nobody gave up their secrets. So he just had to go to a map and look for blue lines. And I'm going there. And that's how you learned all this stuff, is through blue lines. But we have these right in our backyard and we don't even know it. So I spend probably, I haven't fished, I just started fishing the South Fork of the Boise River probably 3 weeks ago. And I won't fish there anymore probably till next year. I haven't fished the Wahi River since last January, and I haven't fished the Boise River at all. Because where I fish is, I'm up in the mountains where all the rivers are. And it's not because I don't like the Wahi River. Love the Wahi River. It's not because there's a lot of people fishing the Wahi River. That doesn't bother me. It has nothing to do with anything about the Wahi. I really love the Wahi River. But the thing about the Wahi River is I can always fish it. I love the Boise River. I do, it's right there. I know every square inch of that river on both banks. South Fork of the Boise River. I probably know that river better than any river, period. Owned a drift boat for 25 years. Fished that river when no one's on it. I know that river like the back of my hand. I can't remember not going to the South Fork of the Boise River and catching a lot of trout. It's because I've fished it so many times, I know where they are. One thing I know about the South Fork Boise River, if you catch a trout somewhere, come back 30 years later, they're still there. And you find these little nuggets along the river. And that's all I do. I just go from nugget 1 to nugget 2. I go catch a fish at nugget 1, and I get in the truck, drive down to nugget 2. Catch 2 fish there, get in the truck, drive down to nugget 3. You don't see me on a hole longer than probably 15 minutes. That's 14 miles of river. That's how you fish that river. But I don't fish it during the summer because it's always there. What's not always here are what we got in the mountains. I mean, once you hit the foothills here, see a pine tree? It's pine trees from there all the way to the North Pole. And rivers and the Frank Church, the largest wilderness area in the lower 48. Man, dying, that's heaven. There's fish everywhere. That's where I am in the summer. I'm hobo around Idaho and Montana. And then I come down here in the winter. Then I fish the Boise River and the Wahi River and the South Fork. But then I spend from end of March to probably mid-March to mid-May, I'm in the Magic Valley, period. You won't find me anywhere else. And I won't see a single fly fisherman on that, anywhere. And I fish rivers. There's 3 rivers over there. I fish the Snake River, full of big giant rainbows and brown trout. Lots of impoundments in there. Of course, there's Spring Creeks, there's Silver Creek, there's Riley Creek. Silver Creek. You can fish Silver Creek year round. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know how many people I saw in Silver Creek this year and last year? In March? Yeah. The Little Wood. I haven't seen anybody fishing the Little Wood in probably 25 years. You know what's in there? Do you guys know where the Little Wood River is?
Yes, I fished it.
Good. Runs between Cary, from Cary, what is it, a few miles to the reservoir? Little Wood Reservoir? And it's a freestone river up in the mountains from there, right? So it flows into the reservoir, comes out the reservoir, it flows like a couple miles into Cary, which is, you don't know where Cary is, it's 10 minutes from Silver Creek, peekaboo. And then it flows all the way to Gooding, where it tees into the Big Wood River. And it's all used for irrigation. But what flows into the Little Wood? Just outside Cary. Silver Creek. And what is Silver Creek? It's an artesian. There's no runoff. So it's 180 cubic feet in May, and it's 180 cubic feet in February, right? But where does that creek flow? Into the Little Wood. People don't know this. It boggles my mind. Well, number one, it's not on the internet, and it's not on YouTube. The only source that can tell you this is standing right in front of you. This is worth your coming here tonight. What flows into the Little Wood is Silver Creek. How much water do you think is flowing in the Little Wood River at that time? 20 cubic feet, and that's a good year. And where Silver Creek flows into the Little Wood River, it ceases to be called Silver Creek. It's now the Big Wood River. So if I'm standing on the Little Wood River at 20 cubic feet right here, and if I go like this, I'm now at 200 cubic feet on the Little Wood River. Silver Creek ceases to exist. But if you know anything about Spring Creek water, it's the most nutritious water God ever created. That water in Silver Creek is almost 300 years old when it comes out. And that creates all that biomass that fish love, all the bugs. Where does that Spring Creek go? Into the Little Wood River. So now we have a river that's 80%, that's over 80% spring water. And if you've ever seen the Little Wood, it's like a giant Spring Creek. Now you got 30 miles of river and no one fishes. All to yourself. How come no one fishes it? Because there's no fish in it. No fish in it. Because they can't catch any fish. Because they forget. They don't know that it's a spring creek. That's all it is. And you got to be able to work that creek or that river like you would Silver Creek. It has hatches. And the trout in there. Talked to a gentleman who was on the Little Wood maybe 8 times this year. Walks in the shop, big smile on his face. He says, Mike, make sure you don't tell anybody about this. Let's see, we got 16 people in here. Okay, you got 30 miles of river. Odds are you wouldn't even see each other. Yeah, I would. Again, this is worth your coming here tonight. I'm always interested. I don't think there's a man or woman on earth that watches more YouTube than I do. I love YouTube, especially fly fishing. I watch everything new on fly fishing because I'm inherently inquisitive and I want to see what other people are saying about this, that, and everything else in fly fishing. And I like it, and I watch it, and I enjoy it. And I remember, there's nothing about Magic Valley on YouTube. It's just hit and miss. I need to check that again. So I typed in on the search bar, Magic Valley Fly Fishing. Oh my God, who's this? He's got a channel called the Magic Valley Fly Fisherman. Who's this? So I click on his channel and just all this fly fishing, and he's telling you all the places I go. And I start panicking. Oh no, they're going to learn all these secrets because no one knows this stuff. This is the first time I've ever publicly said anything about this place. And then I clicked on and I started watching him. He's not catching any fish either. But I'd recommend that you look on there. It's an alternative to you. So when I tell you that I spend mid-March to mid-May fishing Ritter Creek and oh geez, that Ritter's a spring creek, Riley's a spring creek, Billingsley's a spring creek, and then Lost Creek is a spring creek, Sand Creek is a spring creek. and they're open year round.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, you're not bothered. So, how many did I list there? A lot, right?
6.
Yeah. And how many of you didn't know that? Raise your hand. Yeah, you didn't know that. I know none of you did. Y'all know where Silver Creek is, and there was a couple of you knew you could fish it year round.
That never closed.
It's closed.
Yeah. No, it's closed. Most of the length of Silver Creek is closed, but from Highway 20 down, it's open. However, consult the fishing game because they change it all the time. You can fish the Big Wood. You know the Big Wood's closed after March. You can go fish the Big Wood down there too. I know because I
Big
have.
Wood.
Hmm?
I love the Big Wood.
It's right there in Gooding. Go drive to Gooding. How many have been to the Malad River or Hagerman, right? Well, if you're driving down the freeway, it's called the Pitchfork. If you drive down Highway 84 to Bliss, all of a sudden now there's 3 highways. You're heading down Highway 84. It's just Highway 84. You know, lull you to sleep, right? You get to Bliss, and now there's 3. There's Highway 26, Highway 30, and Highway 84. So if you take Highway 30, it's going to take you down into the Hagerman area and all these Spring Creeks sometimes. If you take Highway 26, you know, what is it, 10 minutes to Gooding? Well, now you're where the Little Wood and the Big Wood meet. Right before you get to Gooding, you just turn off the road, and there they are. You just drive down the dirt road, and you can see it. They come right there. Boom. The reason I do that fishing is because there's no one there. And because of the blue-winged olives. Yeah. And you can go down there and become inspired. So these are little nuggets that I'm here to talk to you about. I can remember, we talk about the blue-winged olives and the midges, and I'm sure most of you have fished the Wahi River before. Well, the Wahi River is, anybody can catch fish in the Wahi River. It's just tie a nymph on and do it. And I talked to a lot of people that fish. This is my opinion. I've known so many people over the years who've never fly fished. Go down to the Wahi River and catch a lot of browns and rainbows there, but they're catching them nymphing. So when I say to you that it's easy to catch fish on the Wahi River, I don't know of another river where it's easier to catch fish nymphing than the Wahi River on a good day, when the fish are really cooperating. However, the river can be very technical in the dry fly world, especially right now. Trout are very, very, very size sensitive on that river. I remember talking to a couple old anglers who've been fishing the river as long as I have, and I asked them if there's one bit of advice you can give anybody, and they all said, size is everything on the river. So I know that the blue-winged olive hatch is a fairly simple hatch to catch fish. I call it, and I've written about it, and I've even spoken about it. It's probably the most uncomplicated mayfly. I just did a YouTube on it, I think. I haven't published it yet. It's called Fly Fishing the Blue-winged Olive, Just the Facts. So instead of me doing a 2-hour seminar on the blue-winged olive, here's the facts. This, like 14. Do those things and you're gonna kill it. Because it's not a difficult hatch. Because it's always the first mayfly hatch on the water. It's always the last mayfly hatch on the water. Trout are very size sensitive. The last mayfly hatch on the water is right now, and they're really tiny, 20s and 22s. In the spring, they're 18 and 17s. And you can't catch a trout on a size 18 during the fall blue-winged olive hatch. It has to be a size 20, and vice versa. So if you get the size right, odds are you're going to do good. And you got to think of the blue-winged olive as what? It's kind of cool. Blue wing, that means it has what? A blue wing, right? Olive, right? It means it has an olive body, right? Yeah, and you go to a fly shop and you go to the blue-winged olives and you see the blue-winged olives in there, and what do you see? You see little flies with a blue wing and bright olive bodies, right? I can't tell you the last time I saw a blue wing with a bright olive body. They're black. They're brown, they're dark gray, they're deep olive, they're olive brown, and they can be somewhat light olive. So why is that important? Because what causes a trout to take your dry fly, it has to be triggered. And three things trigger a strike. It's the impression or the image the fly makes in the mirror. So at distance, a trout cannot see anything on the water, but it can see the impression of the insect. If I take that insect and I put it under the mirror or the meniscus, that will not trigger a strike. It'll float right over the trout. It's not food. So another way of looking at it, if you look up, you're going to see a drop-down ceiling here, right? Say that was half-inch thick layer of mercury. Could you see through the mercury? No. So if I climbed up on top, could you see through the mercury and see me? So if I stood up and I'm doing all this, could you see me? No. But if I put my fingers in it, could you see my fingers? Yeah. That's the impression. So that's the trigger. And as that image comes into the window where it can see its size and color. So on blue-winged olive hatch, it's simple as size and color. On the Wahi River, you get that and you're on. It's like taking candy from a baby. But the technical part of the Wahi River, am I on time?
5 minutes.
Okay, the technical part about the Wahi River are the midge hatches. I was there this January, and it was crowded. I mean, there's no longer you go to the Wahi River in the middle of winter and there's no one there. It was crowded. But I was meeting 2 gentlemen up there who'd been fishing the river. They fished the river 3 times a week, 52 weeks of the year. And I rolled in there, and I hadn't been there yet. I'd been there, hadn't been there yet. So it's like the weekend of the New Year's weekend. And I roll in there, and I was to meet them there at noon. I got there, and they're sitting around a campfire waiting on the midges. So I sit there, I put my gear on, and then a friend hands me a fly box. He says, "Here, this is what the fish are hitting on." I open up the fly box, and there's nothing in there smaller than size 28. So here I go.
Yeah.
Get one on. Get it all set up.
Can I ask you a question about blue-winged olives? Is the dread Calvados hatch, is that a blue-winged
No.
olive? It's a different mayfly? Okay, but
Different
it's
species.
very small.
It's a size
Right.
16. No, it's a size 16, which is not,
Okay.
which is small but not
Yeah,
small.
okay. It's different.
So I get one on, and everybody get ready. The fish are rising out. There's no one around, and we walk out, the 3 of us. And these guys are fairly well known on the river. They're like the Pied Pipers. And it doesn't take long, but we've got about 8 anglers there, 5 or 6 over there, and a couple in front of us. And there's just the 3 of us. And there was never a time when our rods were not bent. It was just like that. It was like that all the way down. And then you'd hear this, "What are you using?" "Midge." "What size?" 28. Happened to me 3 times. And then right around 1:30, we broke for lunch. And then it's like, wow! It was like, they were on that spot. And I asked the guys I was with, I go, did you get this question? And they go, yeah, each one of us got that question a few times. But we were the only ones catching fish because of the size. So Wahi River is very size sensitive. And I have midges in my fly box that go down to a size 30. Yeah. But it's really cool. Nowadays, they're making these size 30 hooks with size 20 eyes.
That was my question. Is how do you
Last
get
story,
those on?
last story. I gotta tell you this story real quick, because this is familiar with. Let's move to another river. Let's move to the Big Wood River. I was to meet, I'm gonna talk real fast because I got, maybe 4 minutes. I was to meet someone on the Big Wood River, and we were gonna film on that big Wood River. I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, there at Stanton Crossing Campground. He wasn't there. I waited an hour, I finally called him on the phone, he forgot. So now, there I am, 9:30 in the morning, what am I gonna do? Fish. So I'm spending the night anyway, so I know ahead of time there's pink alberts on the river. It's a pink albert mayfly. So it's the color of my skin. The eyeballs are that color, the wings that color, the body's that color, the tail's that color, the toenails are that color. It's all that color. So I put one of those on and I go fish the Wood River. I fished the Wood River till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was so tired. I haven't fished like that since I was in my 30s. I was beat, but I just killed the fish. I caught more fish than I can remember counting, and I had that same pink albert mayfly caught all those fish. So I have a rod locker. So I put that pink albert on the hook keeper, rolled it in, slid it in there, locked it up, opened the back of my truck, and I went to bed. Woke up the next morning, I was gone. The following weekend, friend calls up, let's go down to the South Fork of Boise River, do some fishing. I got there, and what do you think I saw flying around?
Pink albert.
Pink albert. So I have 2 dry fly rods in that locker, and I pull it out, and I see that same pink albert, right? And I fish all day with that pink albert. Fish after fish after fish. When it's all done, I put that little pink albert on the hooky, reel it in, put him in a rock, and drove home. And then, a couple weeks later, I was talking pink alberts. I said, well, let me show you what I was using on the river. And I took that out, and I took that pink albert, I looked at that pink albert, and I took it, and I went, right there? And I took that, and I put it on the bulletin board. And then when I got home, I put that in the Hall of Fame on my fly tying bench. That one little fly. I have on my fly tying bench, and I'll end with this story. I didn't even touch the rest of it. I have on my fly tying bench the first dry fly I ever tied. And that is also the first dry fly I ever caught a fish with. And if you were to look at that thing today, how would any fish take that dry fly? Beyond me. I'd like to keep talking to you, but it's time's up, and hopefully I've entertained you. You got some information from me tonight that you can get nowhere else. That's worth it. And it sure beats me standing here telling you how to. And you gotta do it this way, you gotta do it that way, you gotta this way, you gotta use that fly and this way. No, this is really key stuff. So you learned about Killer Creek, you learned a little bit about the Little Wood River. It's a great place to just go and experiment. I drove up there March 2021. I drove up there, all the way up there. If you're interested, I have books here. You can write me a check, or you can come by the shop, or you can get them online, or you can get them, go to my website and you can buy them. It's interesting. I drove all the way to the Wood River. It was in March. I like to go in March before the runoff, because you get all that runoff from what? The Little Wood River. And so I was up there in March, and I drove all the way, as usual. I haven't seen anybody up there in probably 25 years. So I drive over, park where I usually park. I got my camp chair, opened the table, put my coffee pot, and I sat down there. And I sat down in that river like this. I was all by myself. So it's not like I had someone with me and we gotta go fish. I had to drive all the way up here to sit with you, Mike. So I sat here like this in front of the river, and I just watched the river. And eventually I got up and I went and got my journal and I started making notes. And I wrote a chapter in this book right here. And it's called, I'm gonna leave you this story. It's called Water. Chapter 5. Call it Water. So I like the chapter, but everybody has their own special chapters. But I know a guy at Boise. I think I own a lot of books. I own like almost 1,000 book library on fly fishing. And I know a guy that has 4 times that. He's probably 10 years older than me, probably knows more about fly fishing his little finger than I do. And he's well off, and he knows a lot about fly fishing. When I do get the chance to watch the guy, I just watch him. I mean, these guys are a dying breed. Anyway, he's cantankerous, as you can imagine. Has the driest sense of humor. Most guys wouldn't like it, but I find him extraordinarily funny. And he likes me. So he walks into the shop one day, and I've got customers. He says, "Where's your book?" It's over there. "Well, I want a copy." He grabs my book, he runs up, throws a $20 bill on the counter, and he walks out, right? Well, a few days later, it's Saturday morning, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm in my robe. I'm watching ESPN with my first cup of coffee, and the phone rings. You can't call me. Nobody can call me. My voicemail's full for the last 15 years. The only people that can call me are family and close friends. He somehow calls me. He's not on here. My phone rings. I pick it up. It's someone I know. It's usually family or real close friends. I just go, "Hello." He goes, "Are you sitting down?" It was him. I knew who it was. "Are you sitting down?" "Yeah." He goes, "I got to talk to you about your book." "Okay, let me hear it." He goes, "I want to talk to you about that chapter you wrote on water." I go, "Okay." "What you got for me?" He goes, "I want you to know that that's the finest chapter in fly fishing I have ever read." And I'm like, and he goes, "Have a nice day." Thank you for having me.
We have time for questions.
Oh, questions and answers? Yeah, for those that want to stick around? Yeah.
So you're talking about the little wood and that it's a spring-type creek and you have to know how to fish it. So how do you fish it?
No, it's not so much that you have to know how to fish it. It's you got to pay your dues. You go up there, that river don't know who you are. You're going to get slapped around a little bit. And it's constant trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. It's very cerebral. You got to think constantly. That's not working. This is not working. That's not working. Some of the oddest things that work, and some of the things you think of that are classical things to do don't work.
Okay.
You just got to make that up there. But it's like any new river you've never been to. You're gonna get slapped around a little bit. You're just another angler on that river, and there's no rapport with you. When I go up there, I'm her old friend. You know what I mean? She's told me all her tricks and everything. So it's one of those rivers where you have got to go there. And trust me when I say this, you go to the Little Wood River, not catch a single fish, and we're glad you went.
Nice.
It's just this neat spot out in the desert where no one goes.
Yeah, sounds great.
All to yourself.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another question.
So I'm really curious about the Malad.
Yeah.
I almost went out there. I was in the area a couple weeks ago, but it was raining. The area where the big and little, the confluence, there seems to be some access there.
Yeah, there's a road right off Highway 20. It'll take you right to that spot.
Right to that spot, okay. And then
not the best
anywhere
road.
downstream from there?
You cannot access the Little Wood from there.
Not the little with the Malad.
Oh, the Malad. Well, in theory, the Malad River. Well, in principle, the Malad River forms where the big wood
Exactly.
comes. Yeah,
Yeah.
but what the problem with that is all that water is gone before it hits the Highway 84 bridge.
Right.
So I can stand.
But upstream from the bridge.
Yeah, so for example, if I'm standing on the Highway 84 bridge and there's no traffic, and say this is downstream from the bridge and this is upstream from the bridge, if I look over the bridge, there's no water. If I look over the bridge, there's a raging river. Because all that water just comes up right there. 250-year-old water just comes right out there. If you look on Google Maps, get on the satellite and look at that bridge, you're gonna see along the river, it's all white.
Oh, because
It's all coming out, yeah.
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 But upstream, up by the confluence, there appears to be water that's,
It will travel a little ways, but
Okay.
and then it'll
peters out.
eventually.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, I've caught a lot of fish up in there.
okay.
So it's not like there's no fish in there, but it's really hard to get in there. It's like you can be standing up here and it's way down there.
Right, that's why I was curious with the access point, like right off of.
There's better
26
access
when you get
on.
in.
So if you're at that point, The Little Woods this way, you can't get across the river to it, because there's a giant canyon there.
Right.
It's on private property, but the road then will follow the big wood. And you can, there's really neat fishing in there.
On the
On
big wood,
on
the
the
big wood's up on the, if you're
So if I'm
standing-
looking at it, like if I'm downstream, I'm looking at this right here, the Little Wood goes there.
Little Wood, the road follows the Little Wood.
No, the road follows the big wood.
Oh, on the other side, oh,
No, there's no other side, you're on the side of the big wood.
okay, okay.
I don't have a whiteboard, I'll show you. But in all honesty, I don't wanna go up there because there's such good fishing in the Malad right there. I mean, there's certain things you need to know about the Malad is there's a lot of big fish in the Malad. They just don't make it up because of the two.
So you're fishing down lower towards the confluence where it
I'm
dumps
down,
into
I'm
the
down
Snake.
between, I'm between the Snake River and the last power plant.
Right, okay, and some of the little pocket waters that are, okay.
Yeah, there's like 3 places that I fish in each section.
Okay, good to know.
So it's economy time dictates you spend all your time fishing in the most productive sections of the river, meaning I can go to the Malad and catch a lot of trout, or I can go up there and try to find one.
Yeah,
Because it changes from year to year. I can go on that section of the Malad and just kill a trout. Go back the next year, nothing. Go back
downstream by the Snake, you're
Yeah.
saying, yeah.
No,
Oh,
where the
upstream,
confluence is.
Where the confluence is,
Yeah,
okay.
and I go back the year after that, nothing. Go back the year after that, and I'm back into fish. It's just, it's the oddest thing in there. Yeah, any other questions? Questions?
Where did you say Clear Creek is?
Clear Creek is right in the heart of Loman.
In the heart of it?
Yeah, it's just take Highway 17, Banks to Loman Highway,
Uh-huh,
to it ends in Highway 21.
okay,
Take a left, like you're going to Canada, and go about 50 feet, and you're gonna go over it.
okay.
So when I was there in the spring, I stopped right on the bridge because there's no one up there, and I was able to open my truck and look way down there, and yeah, it's all clear. Yeah, and that takes you all the way to Bruce Meadows, so you can follow that all the way. You can follow that road all the way to the middle fork of the Salmon River.
Is this like Bear Valley or
Mhm.
Bear, yeah?
It'll
that
take you
way?
all the way to Bear Valley. It's
Okay.
matter of fact, the road's called Bear Valley.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's the
Bear
road
Valley.
that we're talking about, okay, good.
Yeah.
And do you have easy access to the river from that road?
Well, let's put it this way: at my age, it's not easy. When bullets don't hurt and you never get old.
If you don't mind boulders and poison ivy and willows, you know.
They
that's
say that
not a problem.
I've only been that way to Bear Valley. I've probably been up that road to Bear Valley maybe 3 times, and the last time was probably 10 years ago. So it's hard for me because I go to so many places. They all just kind of look the same with my memory. So I go to work and I got little reminder sheets all over me. I look like a Christmas tree. When I get into the truck, I put them all in the truck. When I get to the shop, I take half of them off so I can go do them. when I go home, oh yeah, then I put it back on here because I gotta go do that stuff. So a lot of people have said to me before, I gotta take you to the spot. There's a spot, I'm on a river, right? I'm on a road, right? I'm always in the mountains. So I'm on a road and there's pine trees everywhere. They have this river right here. I'm just going back and forth, looking for this one spot. And I said, this is a really good spot. I'm just gonna take you down. You're gonna catch a lot of fish. And he looks at me, he goes, you been there before? I go, yeah, I've been there lots of times. And you can't remember how to go there? It all looks the same to me. It all looks the same. I'm on a highway in the mountains and a bunch of pine trees and there's a river down there. I can't remember where it is. And then I eventually do find it, but yeah, sucks getting old. But we have so much good fishing in there.
Okay, so we were talking about this earlier. Do trout have a sense of smell?
No.
So,
I would say this, trout have not enough where it's going to affect anything you do in fly fishing.
Okay, so then why do trout go after scents? They with scents on it, scents.
I don't go there.
Howard.
See, well, what you're talking about are two different things. Number one, there's science to everything in fly fishing, and you cannot compare whatever you do in a lake. You cannot say, I can do that in a river. There's not a single thing I teach in fly fishing that you can take to a lake and fish. There's not a single thing that you do in a lake that you're going to take to a river and fish. The reason is this, because trout and rivers don't hunt. They stay in one spot, and the river is a conveyor belt of food. They just stay here all day long and wait for something to come their way. And if you hit it right, doesn't matter if it's a blade of grass, a piece of bark, a piece of plastic. If it's down there and they're hungry, it's going to go in their mouth. If it's not food, they spit it out. Trout in rivers never feed off the bottom. That's why scent is not a big thing in a river. However, in lakes, so for example, in a river, if I see a bloop, if I see a feeding trout, I mean, I got an email today of a video of just boiling with blue-winged olives. And every time I see a bloop, it tells me there's a trout right there. Watch. He's right there, or she, right? And it just ate an aquatic insect. Okay. In a lake, when I see a bloop, I don't know where that fish is, I don't know where it's going, and I don't know what depth it's at. It's not on the bottom. It could be 15 feet deep, and all the fish are at 10 feet. So if I'm below them, I'm never going to catch it. If I'm above them, I'm not going to catch it. Lake fishing's hard sometimes, but river fishing's easy because there they are, right there. Yeah. So scent to me, from a scientific terms, is but it's nothing that I would consider something that I need to worry about. Yeah. Same with lateral lines. Yeah. The only time you're in front of a trout ever is when it's feeding. All other times you're behind it or right at a 90. So you can throw a log on a fish if he's feeding, it's not going to scare him. See, 8 decades, I've never scared a feeding trout. Yeah, you sit there and laugh. But I can tell you, I've scared hundreds of thousands of trout in my life. Hundreds of thousands. But never a feeding trout. It's impossible.
Because when they're feeding, they're just thinking about eating.
No, see, trout can't think. You gotta understand, a frog is smarter than a trout. A lot of people don't like you to hear this, but trout are stupid.
Yeah.
They have no cognitive thought. They can't think. They have a brain half the size of a pea. They can't think. They're only capable of doing 4 things. Not 5. They're only capable of doing 4 things. Of those 4 things, one is called feeding. Okay? They can't do 2 things at the same time. Because they're so stupid, they can't do 2 things at the same time. Meaning, if it's feeding, I can't scare it. Why? Because they can't. They can't do 2 things at the same time. Yes, it's a silly thing when you think about it.
What's the other 2 things they're doing?
Respawn, feed, and safe.
I'm sorry?
Respawn, feed, and safe. You can't be safe and feed. You can't spawn and rest.
Okay.
You can't rest and feed.
Okay.
You can't feed and be safe.
Okay, so are they, like, when there's a hatch going on in the water, they're feeding?
Mm-hmm.
So when there's no hatch going on, they're resting?
No. Who knows? What we know is they're not feeding.
They're not feeding.
Right.
So
So
how do
they
you
can
know
be scared.
when the fish are feeding?
It's obvious. They're at the surface.
They're at the surface?
Shouldn't they be feeding subsurface?
They're feeding subsurface all the time, but it's an opportunistic take. So the difference, so fly fishing is 2 things, it's surface and subsurface. It's dry fly fishing and nymph fishing. Here's where you're getting confused. Think of dry fly fishing as sharks, okay? Think of nymph fishing as grizzly bears, okay? And think about this. Is there anything that you can compare from one to the other? No. But you can make one distinction. They're meat eaters. But there's nothing in a grizzly bear I can compare to a shark. There's nothing about sharks that makes sense to grizzly bears. One's an air breather and one's a water breather. There's absolutely there's nothing that connects them.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Both eat humans.
That's how it is in fly fishing. There's absolutely nothing in common between dry fly fishing and nymph fishing. That's a triggered strike, and that's a conditioned strike. There's absolutely no dotted lines. I can tell you this many times, at least once a week, I have to say to someone, are you talking about dry fly fishing or nymphing?
So if you're doing a dry dropper, you're doing both.
Yeah, but one's an indicator, you're really nymphing, one's an indicator and one's a nymph. The reason why you're dry dropping is because you don't see any fish rising. Although you're usually on a freestone river where you can throw a dry fly out anytime in a freestone river. The difference between that is trout that live in tailwater rivers have extraordinarily narrow search images, called prey image. Trout that live in freestone rivers have a prey image so huge that a 747 can go through it. So therefore, I cannot put a dry fly on a tailwater river ever, unless it's to a feeding trout. To do otherwise would be illogical.
Or
So-
you just be practicing casting.
Exactly. So another way of looking at this is, say I'm a tailwater trout, okay? And I'm underwater. I have a horizontal view, just like you do right now. Everybody in here has a horizontal view. You're all looking at me, I'm all looking at you. If I put my hand up here, I don't see my hand, do I? Right? That's called the horizontal view. However, we also have a vertical view. So humans have a horizontal view and a vertical view. A vertical view is this. Now you all disappear, right? That's why you want to be in front of a trout, because they can't see you anyway. So if I have a horizontal view, it doesn't do you any good to be dry fly fishing. It's illogical. So in tailwater rivers, trout have a very horizontal view and a very small search image, meaning they're really picky. However, trout in freestone rivers are like this. They have huge search images. They're like this. They're starving because there's no food. Tailwater rivers are full of food.
So what is the difference between tailwaters and freestone?
No, it's a tailwater river comes out of the bottom of the dam. See it? Tailwater comes out of the bottom of a dam.
That's
and
like the Oahe.
like the Wahi, that's a tailwater. Any river that comes out of a dam is a tailwater, and it's a nutrient-rich water that creates a biomass, and biomass creates aquatic insects, and aquatic insects feed big fish. A freestone river is free of any man-made structure. Therefore, there are very little freestone rivers that are very fertile, and that's why the trout are always looking for food anywhere. That's why they have both a horizontal and vertical. So consequently, if you go to a tailwater river, you're either dry fly fishing, you're either shark fishing or grizzly bear fishing. In a freestone river, I can use a dry fly if I want to. So for your sake, 98% of all my fishing on freestone river are with a dry fly, because they're hungry. On a tailwater river, you got to put that fly right in front of their nose. On a freestone river, I can put it anywhere because they're looking.
So which rivers do we have are freestone?
Any river that's not from a dam.
Is it Littlewood freestone?
No, yes, until it goes into the reservoir.
Up in the mountains, in other words, all the rivers are freestone rivers.
Yes.
When they're.
So let me put it this way. A tailwater is a tailwater forever. So a tailwater river never fishes like a freestone river, ever. It's impossible. However, a freestone river can fish like a tailwater river. So I'll leave you this last comparison. So if I have a pitcher of water, okay, it just looks like a pitcher of water. And I tell you, this is a pitcher of water, and it's freestone water. And it's right here, watch. And then I have another pitcher right here of clear water. And this is, I'm telling you, is a pitcher of tailwater river. And I put it right here. Okay, so that one's a tailwater and that one's a freestone. If I put them together right here, the one on your right would be the tailwater. The one on your left would be the freestone. So what's the difference? Can you tell the difference between the two? No. Nobody can. So how do we know what's a tailwater river, what's a freestone river? Well, here's the difference. What you didn't know is before I put that pitcher down there, I put a scoop of ortho fertilizer in it. And I didn't tell you. And when you put fertilizer in water, you can't take it out. Freestone rivers, they have nothing in them. However, when they flow out of the mountains into the valleys, what happens? They get fertilized, yeah. So you can have a tailwater, a freestone river in the mountains, like the Big Wood. Once it flows through Ketchum, it starts turning into a tailwater because it gets a lot of fertilized water coming
So are there less fish in Freestone?
in. Yeah, no, it's about the same,
And they're hungry?
extremely hungry.
Because they don't have fertilizer.
Yeah, there's a book here that tells you all about it.
Thank you, Mike. That's awesome.